Hello, I'm Syan Vallence. It's 4 o'clock and these are our top stories in Perth this afternoon. 5 suburbs, 4 charges, 2 suspects and 1 wild police pursuit in Perth. WA's housing crisis set to deepen, home builds falling to historic lows at the worst possible time. The plans to build up and over the water, a bold new vision for Perth. Car sales surge, WA's big boom in buying luxury vehicles. And finally found, Warner reunited with his baggy greens, how the cricket star got his precious caps back. 2 men have been charged over a wild police chase through Perth's southeast. The pair were allegedly behind a 2-day joyride in a stolen Toyota Prado. Police spotted the stolen car at 7 o'clock this morning in Cannington. Ground crews and the police helicopter tracked the Toyota through Cannington, Beckenham, Orange Grove, Lesmurdie and Maddington, where the chase came to a dramatic end. The car crashed into an industrial area near Valencia Way. Police say both men tried to escape on foot, but officers managed to chase them down. A 29-year-old from Newman and a 41-year-old from Kelmscott are now facing 4 charges, including reckless driving and failing to stop. Coming up at 4:30, see the dramatic warehouse takedown as officers move in and make their arrest. Our reporter Lucy Murray speaks to the owner of the warehouse who saw it all unfold. That's coming up a little later this hour. Economists are warning that new home building will fall this year to its lowest level in more than a decade. A perfect storm of rate rises, material costs and a shortage of workers are fueling the downturn. Isabel Mullen has more from Canberra.
Well, the government has set an ambitious target, 1.2 million new homes with construction starting this July. That's 240,000 new homes every 12 months for the next 5 years. But economists believe will fall well short this year, building just 179,000. The cost of building is up 11% from 2022. The price of timber frames, terracotta tiles and steel jumping by more than 50% during the pandemic.
The rise in the cost of building a home has been compounded by the increase in the cash rate. This will be the slowest year for new detached housing starts since 2012.
Obtaining these materials was very hard, so therefore it's very expensive. Delays itself on a project costs an arm and a leg because of the interest, especially now.
Energy-intensive materials are also becoming more expensive. There is a critical shortage of tradies, but still the government is promising a bumper period.
We need to put shoulder to the wheel, all levels of government, including local government.
Everything is going up. Everything. Glass, bricks, concrete, labour, under this government.
Suppliers believe one of the biggest issues is delays in building approvals, saying a large part of the problem lies with local councils.
There's a bold new vision for Elizabeth Quay. As well as going upwards, the state government's development arm wants it to go outwards into the river. It's seeking ideas for a floating hospitality venue, and no ideas are off the table. It would be Perth's second floating venue after the Raft, which is accessible by boat. Melbourne has several floating venues, including a nightclub and a restaurant. Terror group Islamic State has claimed responsibility for a deadly twin bomb attack in Iran, killing dozens of civilians. The blasts come amid fears of rising tensions in the Middle East as the US Secretary of State makes another dash to the region.
Good afternoon. Top White House official Antony Blinken is making his 4th trip to the Middle East in less than 3 months, with fears of escalating violence between Israel and Iranian-backed militant groups. Crowds in Tehran were chanting "Death to Israel, death to America" hours after a deadly twin bomb attack killed close to 100 people. But today, terror group ISIS claimed responsibility, saying 2 operatives wore explosive vests to a commemorative service for an Iranian commander killed by the US 4 years ago.
Certainly in no position to doubt that that claim by ISIS-K. ISIS-K does remain a viable terrorist threat.
There are concerns tensions in the Middle East are growing. Vast crowds in Lebanon gathering for the funeral of a Hamas chief killed in an Israeli strike on a Beirut apartment. Hezbollah vowing it won't go unpunished. While attacks in the Red Sea on commercial shipping has the US and allies in discussions about potential military action.
These attacks are unacceptable, they're illegal, and they've got to stop. And if they don't stop, action will be taken.
The US today carrying out an airstrike in Baghdad, killing an Iranian-backed militia commander. The Pentagon was unapologetic, saying the strike was in self-defence after repeated attacks on US troops.
Nurses have voted in favour of a new pay offer, ending a drawn-out dispute that sparked mass protests. The Australian Nursing Federation says 65% voted for the new deal versus the state government's old offer, though only about 2,000 people actually voted.
Because of the hardline government stance on their wages policy, we were forced to make a decision to bring this EBA to a close. Without having a signed EBA, we would not get the enforceable ratios that nurses and midwives desperately need. So I chose to bring this negotiation to an end by offering an option A or an option B. If we had a no vote, nurses naturally would have voted no.
The state government says it welcomes the decision. It's the last public sector wage agreement the government needed to settle. 2023 has proven a record-breaking year for new car sales, with close to 125,000 people in WA taking home a new vehicle. Nick Overall has more.
Good afternoon. The data from the Federal Chamber of Automotive Services shows car sales in WA have surged by 18% in the last 12 months. Toyota was the top choice for buyers with close to 28,000 cars sold, but it was the Ford Ranger which became the most popular this year, taking out the top spot from the Toyota Hilux.
Seeing a particular growth in the SUV market, that's outsold passenger cars by 3 to 1, which is quite extraordinary. And as we've seen, Ford Ranger is the top selling car in Australia. That tells you where the market is sitting quite comfortably with that SUV place.
Luxury car sales also boomed in 2023. Sales of Lamborghinis doubled, Porsches and Maseratis also rising to new records.
Luxury cars actually represent a fairly good investment opportunity right now because they are appreciating in value. It's the first time we've seen that in quite some time.
The electric car market has also grown further. Purchases of Teslas doubled to 4,200 in 2023. Across Australia, battery EVs made up 7.2% of new purchases. The boom in car sales has come as a surprise to some in the face of rising cost of living.
While there are more people able to buy new cars, that's a sign of the wealth in our community. The people we see are struggling to register their cars, and that's a sign of the people who aren't engaged in that wealth making.
Financial pressures like skyrocketing interest rates are expected to impact the market in the year ahead. Find out what the experts predict in the news at 6.
David Warner has been reunited with his priceless baggy greens. The cricket star's lost backpack with the precious caps inside turned up in the team's bag room at their Sydney hotel just in time for the third day of the pink test. Here's Tom Saker with more.
Good afternoon, it's James McGrath Day here at the SCG, where just about everything that casts a shadow is adorned in pink. But David Warner has stolen the headlines once again. His baggy greens have magically reappeared. It's not entirely clear yet who is responsible for his backpack's misplacement, but Cricket Australia said it was found in the baggage room at Sydney's Key West Hotel last night, where the team is staying. Warner reacted on Instagram.
I am pleased and relieved that I've got my baggy back in my hands. Any cricketer knows how special their cap is, and I'll cherish this for the rest of my life.
The Prime Minister, here to support the Jane McGrath Foundation, also reacted.
Well, it's been found. Fantastic.
In the meantime, a huge pink crowd is getting behind the cause in an effort to sell 322,000 virtual seats, which would mean every breast cancer patient in Australia will have access to a specialist breast care nurse. That goal is within sight, with well over half of those seats already sold.
Just to see the crowd coming in, everything awash in pink, is absolutely brilliant.
It's the largest charitable sporting event in the world, and it's something I'm very, very proud of.
And Glenn McGrath is hoping that the test goes well into its 5th day to raise as much money as possible.
This is 7's afternoon news. Coming up, winter whiteout. A snowstorm forces more than 1,000 drivers to camp overnight in their cars. And documents unsealed. The Hollywood stars named in the Jeffrey Epstein court files. That's next. You're watching 7's 4 p.m. news live from Perth. Right now it's a sunny 28 degrees in the city. The full forecast is coming up soon. More famous names have been revealed in newly released court documents about pedophile monster Jeffrey Epstein. It's claimed he liked to brag about being friends with Hollywood stars like Cate Blanchett and Leonardo DiCaprio, even though there's no proof they knew each other. Here's Miley Hogan with more.
In the latest set of unsealed documents, former US President Bill Clinton has been mentioned again. This time it's claimed he threatened Vanity Fair not to write sex trafficking articles about his good friend J.E. The former president has long denied any knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, and Vanity Fair says it categorically did not happen. The accusation was made in an email that was sent to a journalist in 2011 by Epstein and Prince Andrew accuser Virginia Giuffre.
I know what happened, and there's only one of us telling the truth.
A number of A-listers have also appeared in the documents, including Cameron Diaz, Leonardo DiCaprio and Australia's Cate Blanchett. But there is no evidence he ever knew any of those celebrities, and they have all denied any association with the sex offender. Rather, one of Epstein's victims claimed he name-dropped them, suggesting he liked to talk about knowing movie stars. Epstein was arrested on sex trafficking charges in 2019. He killed himself in jail while awaiting trial, but questions still linger about his connections, leading journalists and victims to push for the old court documents to be made public.
Part of this is understanding who helped facilitate the trafficking, who was around, who knew about it.
Hundreds of pages have now been unsealed, with more documents expected in the coming days.
There's been a shooting at a high school in the US with 1 student killed and 5 others injured. Police were called to Perry High School in Iowa after an alert was issued for an active shooter. The gunman, who was a student at the school, took his own life.
This happened at approximately 7:37 this morning. School didn't start yet, luckily, so there was very few students and faculty in the building, which I think contributed to a good outcome in that sense.
Today was the school's first day back after the Christmas, New Year, winter break. A whiteout has left more than 1,000 drivers stranded in their cars overnight in southern Sweden. The armed forces had to deliver food and water to those stuck on a major motorway, which was made impassable by heavy snowfall. The country is experiencing its coldest January in a quarter of a century, with temperatures dropping to minus 43 degrees in some areas. The federal government is refusing to release a report into how best to shut down the nation's live sheep export industry. Here's Noel Brunning from 7 News Regional WA.
With the new year has come a new plea for Canberra to change its mind on the live sheep export ban. This time, WA farmers were joined by their eastern states counterparts. It comes amid the first successful live sheep export to Saudi Arabia in more than a decade. The government's also refusing to say when it will release an independent report received last year into how to best end live sheep exports. 13 people could face hefty fines after they were caught marron fishing out of season. Authorities seized nearly 300 illegally caught marron in the southwest. The month-long season doesn't start until Monday. And on our state's south coast, the Disabled Surfers Association has put out a plea for volunteers. The Let's Go Surfing Days can attract dozens of surfers. A shortage of volunteers will reduce the time they're in the water.
Thanks, Noel. Ahead this news hour, a 13-year-old boy has achieved the unthinkable. He's beaten Tetris. Find out how the team took on the famous game and won. Plus, Return of the King, how AI technology is bringing Elvis back to life. That's coming up a little later in the bulletin. You're watching 7's Afternoon News. Adrian Barich joins us now. And Barra, it's been an incredible third test.
Oh, sensational, fantastic, everything. So we've been loving it, haven't we? There's no doubt about that. And today we had an Aussie batting collapse followed by some incredible bowling from Josh Hazlewood. Coming up, Mitch Marsh makes another half century at the SCG before a dozen wickets fall late on day 3. And Leighton Hewitt makes a bold prediction about Alex de Minaur.
Know the headlines as they break. Know the stories as they happen. With 7news.com.au, know the news now.
Welcome back. Australia looked in trouble earlier in the day but is now well on top of the third test at the SCG. The Aussies lost 5 for 10 in their 299. Pakistan lead by 82 but are in disarray at 7 for 68 after Hazlewood's 4-wicket blitz just before stumps. The test match taking a turn when Marsh departed for 54 after scooping Jamal to mid-off. He's scored the most runs for Australia this series. Australia then losing 5 wickets for 10 in 21 balls. Pakistan with a 14-run first innings lead, but about to suffer their own stunning collapse. Josh Hazlewood with 3 wickets in 1 over to finish the day with 4 wickets for just 9 runs.
Australians are happy. Josh Hazlewood is on fire.
Another one! Can you believe it? 3 wickets in the over.
Amazing. Pakistan 7 down, as I said, just 82 in front, and the Aussies well on track for victory. India pulled off the fastest test victory in history, beating South Africa in a match that lasted just 642 deliveries. Captain Rohit Sharma took aim at the apparent double standard of Indian pitches compared with the rest of the world.
I honestly don't mind playing in pitches like this, as long as everyone keeps their mouth shut in India and don't talk too much about Indian pitches.
The series was shared at 1-1. And Scott Boland insists he remains in the mix for a call-up against the West Indies. Tomorrow night's game for the Stars at the MCG will be his first in almost 2 months after carrying the drinks in the Test squad.
Their view hasn't changed in me, and still the next one in. So it's a pretty tight turnaround between those 2 tests. From Adelaide to Brisbane, so hopefully I get a game.
Aaron Finch has flagged a potential coaching career after confirming he'll retire at the end of the Big Bash season. The Renegades had their slim finals hopes dashed last night by the Hurricanes.
Oh, he swung hard. That's going to hit the roof, is it? I think it's stuck up there.
Stuck up there, El. That's incredible.
It is incredible. Hobart chased down the 148-run target with 8 balls to spare, though. And Leighton Hewitt believes Alex de Minaur is ready to win his first Grand Slam. Australia's United Cup team touched down in Sydney last night, flying in from Perth on a private jet. Back on court today to prepare for their semi-final, de Minaur was still revelling in the biggest win of his career over the great Novak Djokovic.
Obviously, remember for the rest of my life, and it's definitely not every day you get a win over the best player in the world.
A time violation for a lengthy toilet break was the only negative for Rafa Nadal as his comeback gathers steam. The 22-time Grand Slam champion demolishing local Jason Kubler in straight sets at the Brisbane International.
Honestly, Brisbane is very humid, and I had to change every single piece.
Nadal faces Aussie Jordan Thompson in the quarters. And back feeling as healthy as his days at world number 1, Jason Day made a great start to the new PGA season. The 8 under 65 in the first round of the century. His 5 kids having a ball starting the year in Hawaii.
They just go down the beach every day and enjoying themselves, and they come back and bring half the beach with them in the room. So I'm always on my hands and knees.
Day is 1 shot off the pace. Okay, nice to see David Warner found his cap. That's nice, isn't it, Syan?
Mystery half solved.
That's half sold, exactly. I'll see you at 6 with more from the SCG.
We'll see you then. Thanks, Barra. An 8-year-old boy has just become the youngest Australian sailing champion. The incredible win has even attracted the attention of the country's most decorated yachtsman, who's reached out to him personally. Kate Massey has the details.
Well, Syan, while most 8-year-olds might be afraid of the open water, this is where William Rose became an Australian champion in sailing, taking out the 125 sailing competition, the youngest to ever win. He and his dad steering the boat to victory.
We had to do lots of training and make sure our sails were right. It feels very special.
To top off the amazing feat, racing royalty John Bertrand today called him personally to congratulate him on the achievement.
You're pretty happy with the result?
Yeah.
So I see the results, you get a whole bunch of firsts.
Yeah.
Will has been sailing since he was 3 years old, his mum and dad teaching him everything he knows, Dad Stewart right by his side for the win.
The first 4 races of this regatta were in heavy airs that challenged even senior sailors. So for William to be able to race our boat around the course in a very, very competitive manner was extraordinary.
Will is hoping for another big year of sailing in 2024. Plenty of solo races planned, as well as hoping to defend his title in the National Championship in Brisbane. Syan.
Thanks, Kate. Up next on 7's Afternoon News, Operation Cleanup on the Gold Coast. Boots on the ground, troops called in to help communities recover from dual weather disasters. Plus, the big push for a new floating venue here in Perth. Full details next. Hello, you're watching 7's Afternoon News live from Perth. Here are some of today's top stories. A wild ride through Perth's southeast. 2 men rip their car apart during a hectic police pursuit. Officers give chase, first on wheels, then on foot. 2 men charged. The transformation of Perth takes to the water. There are new calls for a floating hospitality venue off Elizabeth Quay as the city extends up and out. The United Nations is warning of a new danger facing the people of Gaza. 2 million people are at risk of starving as the civilian death toll climbs. The rich are getting richer while the poor are getting poorer. WA's wealth gap is growing. Sales of luxury cars are booming as some families struggle to put food on the table. And we've got a hot and sunny spell ahead. I'll have your full weather forecast coming up later this hour. Returning now to our lead story, 2 men have been charged over a dramatic police chase through Perth's southeast. The wild pursuit in a stolen Toyota Prado went through 5 different suburbs: Cannington, Beckenham, Orange Grove, Maddington, and even a bush track in Lesmurdy. Police say the pair crashed the car and tried to escape officers on foot. One suspect was arrested on a nearby road when he couldn't run any further. Police chased the second suspect through an industrial area on Valencia Way and made a dramatic arrest in a warehouse there.
With you, bro. Get down! With you, Griff. Please do not move! Do not move!
Good afternoon. I'm here at MT Crace where the alleged offender was arrested after a long police pursuit through Perth's southern suburbs. I'm here with owner Tony Sessage. Tony, what happened this morning?
Well, yeah, it was about 10 to 8 when it all started unfolding. I was working in this area. We heard the sirens, we heard the chopper. We stepped out to the back door to see what was going on, only to be confronted with policemen jumping over the fence and cars and sirens going and everyone yelling out frantically, where is he? We then obviously worked out they were chasing someone who they believed, I think, was on the premises. They couldn't find him, but there was police also coming from the front of the property, and eventually the guy just quietly must have been hiding behind the building here amongst packs of wood, decided to sneak out quietly, only to be confronted at the doorway there with the policeman, and he thought he'd try and leg it into this area, but it was a dead end.
A very scary Friday morning. How did you and your staff react?
Oh, look, staff were curious at first as to what was going on, but as the situation where he ended up in this area here and the cops were trying to arrest him and whatnot, I happened to be just over there and happened to hear the word gun, and then that's where I just indicated to my staff, look, just move back, everyone, just, we're not sure what's going on here, so yeah. but we were a bit concerned.
In 7 News at 6, we'll bring you accounts from witnesses who saw the alleged offenders earlier in the day at a busy shopping centre.
The changing face of Elizabeth Quay could be about to extend into the Swan River. There's a call out to hospitality organisations asking for proposals for a new venue floating on the water. Rory Campbell explains.
The buildings are racing skyward here at Elizabeth Quay, but soon the growth might head into the water. The state government's development arm wants to see world-class ideas for a floating hospitality venue. The call-out is for ideas to build and operate an offering in one of two locations, in the heart of the quay, at the end of the existing jetty, or out the front of the quay's western point. The offer is a licence with a trial period of up to 3 years with the possibility to extend.
I think, definitely it'd be a good idea, especially for the tourism sort of side of it, get more people in and that.
Yeah, anything floating on the water brings people down, right? Doesn't matter what it is, but it'd be really good.
It wouldn't be the first floating venue in Perth. The raft already sits along from Elizabeth Quay, accessible by boat. Melbourne has several floating venues, including a nightclub and a seasonally-inspired eatery. No ideas are off the table for this latest opening in Perth.
We know there are lots of good operators with expertise in exactly this sort of venue in other cities around Australia. And I'm certain that we'll get some high quality, high calibre proposals come forward.
In the news at 6, the changes you can expect to see in our CBD as 2024 goes on.
The United Nations has warned that 2 million people in Gaza are on the brink of famine as fighting hinders efforts to get in desperately needed aid. It comes as more Palestinian children were reportedly killed in Israeli airstrikes in southern Gaza.
They are fighting on the beaches of Gaza, fighting for survival. Just the rumour of food draws a desperate crowd. Hemmed in by Israeli airstrikes and the sea, it's a battle within a war. And most days, it feels like they're losing both. We haven't been given anything, says this woman. I'm waiting to feed my children. They have nothing to eat. The blessing of childbirth has become a curse for Ayman. In the smoky corridors of the school where she shelters, 40 to a room, and not even fresh air for her 3 newborn babies to breathe.
We don't have enough oxygen to breathe. If I open the window, the smoke just comes in. We dream of getting back to our homes before the war.
The United Nations warns that 2 million people are at imminent risk of famine, a man-made disaster, some fear forgotten in an escalating regional crisis that saw Israel exchange fire with Hezbollah fighters on the Lebanese border to the north. Israel says it killed 4 militants. In the Lebanese capital, vast crowds gathered for the funeral of the Hamas leader Salah al-Aruri, an ally whose assassination by Israel, Hezbollah vows, will not go unpunished. The situation is volatile. Israel says it will defend every front in a war that claimed 125 more lives in Gaza over the past day. Though Assad does not appear in those figures, he is a casualty nonetheless of hunger and disease and scarce medicine. Maybe it is better that he does not have to live in this suffering, his grandmother tells us. She says they all pray for peace, but that seems a dim prospect.
The Army has been called in to help with the clean-up on 700 Gold Coast streets after the area's double whammy of wild weather. The scale of the tornado and flood disaster there is now being compared to Cyclone Oswald. Rachel Baxter reports.
Good afternoon. Well, this is one of the main roads here in Mount Tamborine, pummeled by that mini tornado that ripped through here on Christmas Day. Energex is continuing to work to restore power for thousands of residents who have been in the dark. Many have been told they will have power by today, while others will likely spend another weekend without it. More than 50 Defence Force personnel are now on the ground, helping with the clean-up efforts here in the Scenic Rim as well as right across the Gold Coast. More than 30,000 insurance claims have been made, with that number expected to grow, particularly now that the roads have reopened. Now, while some businesses remain closed, others with generators are being swamped with locals and tourists who are being welcomed here in the hopes to boost the economy, which has been hit hard by these dual weather disasters.
We're limited to what we can run. We're only running one freezer, but we've got coffee. That's the main thing.
I'd say it would be comparable to Cyclone Oswald. But we estimate it's going to be 750,000 truckloads of movement to move all these wastes.
Power still remains a massive issue here. Many people without it are still unable to access fresh water. These locals washing their clothes in a swollen river is a glimpse at how dire the situation is here. But it's hoped clear skies and boots on the ground will help with these clean-up and recovery efforts.
Despite many Western Australians struggling with the current cost of living crunch, new car sales are at a record high and luxury vehicles are also enjoying a big boom in sales. Here's Nick Overall with more.
Good afternoon. 2023 was a record-breaking year for car sales in WA. I'm here with Stephen Moyer, who's the head of the Motor Trade Association. Stephen, can you tell us what 2023 shows about the market at the moment?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Yeah, 2023 was an exceptional year, 17% up on the year prior. And we've had 5 consecutive years with record-breaking. So this really shows you that the strength of the industry. Motorists are spoilt with choice. We have the largest range of cars in the world in terms of market share. And so this is really reflecting back now that people are exercising their choice.
And Stephen, luxury car sales have also boomed like the ones we're lucky to be standing in front of now. Can you tell us why we're seeing that interest go up?
Well, there's 2 reasons. One, people are actually living their dream by buying the car of their dreams, but 2, people are realising that motor vehicles, and particularly in the premium end, are a very sound investment. So they're buying those cars and actually watching them appreciate.
And what have we seen in terms of electric cars in 2023?
Yeah, electric have grown. They're slowly getting up. They're about 7% of the market currently. We would expect that by 2030 they might sit around the 20% of the market. So certainly we're getting a much better range of cars coming onto the market, and costs are slightly coming down, but still they will struggle when they're looking at SUVs and the things that really dominate our market.
And what about for your everyday driver? Do we know what the most popular type of car was?
Certainly the Ford Ranger has dominated this year. Toyota absolutely have dominated market share. They've got well over 20%, but Ford Ranger was the top selling car. What it does show you is SUVs are dominating almost 2 to 3 times more than what passenger vehicles are selling. So it's a very strong market in the SUV space.
Stephen, thank you so much. Join us in the news at 6, where we'll find out what the most popular cars were right across Australia.
Thanks, Nick. Still to come this hour, a whale shark rescued, the teen who beat Tetris, and why Elvis really is back in the building. See you after the break. The Queen of Denmark has taken a final ride in a gold carriage before officially giving up her throne. Thousands braved the snow and sleet to cheer the Queen along the route in what was her last public appearance as monarch. Queen Margrethe will step down on January 14th after 52 years on the throne. The 83-year-old monarch will hand the throne to her eldest son, Crown Prince Frederik. Lifeguards and bystanders have raced into the water to rescue a baby whale shark in distress in South Africa. The creature ended up stranded close to shore at a beach near Cape Town. It took them several minutes, but they managed to help the shark into deeper water and it swam away unharmed. In a world first, a 13-year-old gamer achieved the unthinkable. He broke Tetris. This is the moment the final bricks fell into place.
Please crash.
To the tiny, triumphant sounds of bleeps, bloops, and a near-complete nervous breakdown.
Oh my God!
You're witnessing one of the proudest moments in the history of video games. Tetris finally toppled by human hands.
I I'm gonna pass out.
The guy totally freaking out is Oklahoma's teenage Tetris whiz, Willis Gibson.
I can't feel my fingers.
Under the gamer handle Blue Scooty, the 13-year-old prodigy scoring so high the game could no longer function, reaching its once mythical kill screen in just 38 minutes at level 157.
I was just sort of shocked and just happy that I did it.
Tetris and its beautiful blocks have been falling into our hearts for nearly 40 years. The rules are simple. Fit the falling shapes into solid rows. As the levels rise, Tetris tumbles faster and faster. The teen believed to be the first person to beat the game. So historic, the CEO of Tetris calling it a feat that defies all preconceived limits of this legendary game. Willis says it took a lot of practice. The win dedicated to his dad, who tragically died in December.
I'm dedicating it to my dad. He was always very supportive, and I think he'd be proud.
Tearing down an icon brick by brick.
Yes!
A game-breaking victory just falling into place.
Tim McMillan is in the newsroom preparing for the bulletin at 6. Tim, what's coming up?
Yeah, hi there, Syan. We're all still reeling, of course, from those graphic pictures of that passenger plane inferno on a runway in Tokyo. But now there are new revelations about the fiery crash. Find out what the pilots weren't told. Also today, we've seen those incredible images of that wild police chase through Perth's southeast. 2 suspects, 4 charges across 5 suburbs. At 6, you'll hear from terrified witnesses who saw the pursuit and the dramatic arrests unfold. Plus, Oscar Pistorius is out on parole. The Blade Runner turned girlfriend killer has served half of his sentence. He's been behind bars for more than 9 years. Find out the strict conditions for his release. Also tonight, a push to ban button batteries altogether. A grieving mother speaks out, urging the government to take action. And Half Price Holidays will have the latest interstate travel deals, trying to lure West Aussies to the Sunshine State. We'll see you at 6 after I practice my Tetris, Si.
Thanks, Tim. The team in the newsroom's working on those stories. We'll see Tim at 6 o'clock. It's Elvis as you've never seen him before. The King is being brought back to the stage thanks in part to artificial intelligence. He'll feature in an immersive concert experience that will debut in the UK.
We know him as the King of Rock and Roll, a pioneer who inspired some of the biggest names in music. But now it's his turn to follow in the footsteps of others. Elvis Presley, the latest star to be brought back to life by AI. Those before him include Tupac, Whitney Houston and most recently ABBA, whose digital avatar show attracted more than 1 million fans in its first year. But can artificial intelligence really capture the King?
I think you'll get a real sense of the King through all aspects of the show. So absolutely the AI aspect is really important to that and the performance. You'll also get to understand more about him though as a person by stepping in his shoes, seeing what his life was like.
Since my baby left me. Since his death in 1977, the world's fascination with Elvis has lived on.
Black hair and more eye makeup.
Most recently, his controversial relationship with ex-wife Priscilla captured in a film released earlier this week. And since last autumn, UK fans have been getting a glimpse of Graceland in a London exhibition of more than 400 artefacts.
This is Elvis's iconic belt from 1969.
OK, how much would something like this be worth?
That is worth £500,000. It's been really popular, so much so that we were only supposed to open until February, but we are now extending through until the spring, so as many people, not just from London, from all over the country, can come and see all Elvis's prized possessions.
Tickets for the AI show in London go on sale later this year, with more global dates to follow. And while fans might not get moments like this, they'll no doubt be saying thank you very much for bringing Elvis back in the building.
It's looking hot and sunny in the days ahead. I'll have your full weekend forecast coming up after the break. See you then.
Now, Fuel Watch. Perth's petrol prices brought to you by Fuel Watch and 7 News.
Hello again, checking the weather now. It's been a very warm and sunny day. We reached a top of 30.9 degrees in the city around 2 o'clock this afternoon. Looking at the national forecast, Melbourne's expecting a mostly sunny day, 31 degrees. Brisbane's expecting more rain. Sydney, acceptable cricket conditions, cloudy and 26 degrees. Back to Perth, sunshine central. The next few days will be hot, dry, sunny and windy. We're heading for a top of 32 tomorrow, then a scorching 36 on Sunday, 35 on Monday, windy and 32 degrees for Tuesday, 33 on Wednesday, a few clouds around and a top of 34 for Thursday and 31 degrees next Friday. And that's Perth's 4 p.m. news. I'm Syan Vallence. I'll be back with Tim, Ange and Barra for 7 News at 6. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. The Chase Australia is next.